8 to 9 figure brands don't focus on ads. They focus on their customers and build funnels that guide their audience during the entire buying journey. You've probably heard it a million times. Since the Andromeda update on Meta, you need to mass produce creatives. Launch a ton of ads, throw them into a campaign, and hope that one hits. Then you're supposed to analyze the data, hook rates, thumb stop ratios, messaging angles, and create this constant feedback loop of iterating and testing. Look, I agree that testing and iterating is important, but the problem is that everyone's so focused on ads and creative that they're neglecting their customer and the customer journey. And that's what 8 to 9 figure brands do differently. So yes, they do produce a lot of creative, but they do so after constructing clear customer avatars that allows their ads and their funnel to speak to their customer as opposed to selling to them. At Mabane Media, what we do is we do a very in-depth process of analyzing your customer avatars and digging into their deepest desires by analyzing thousands of reviews and forums online such as Reddit and seeing exactly what they're saying, what pain points they have, and what problems they have. So, to look at some examples, these aren't brands that we work with, but these are some examples. Some of them are actually, but these are examples of what brands are doing really well, like 8, 9 figure brands that are big in the space. We're going to look into exactly what they are doing and actually look at their landing pages and how they are targeting their customers in different ways using these hyper-targeted landing pages. So first up, we've got Javi Coffee or JV Coffee. I'm actually not sure how to say that, but they do a lot of things well, and I use them as a lot of examples. Looking into their page. So first thing to address is that this is a listicle. So a listicle is a landing page that's disguised as an article that you can use in ads. The purpose of this is no one really wants to go and check out your website. They're not looking for products. No one goes on social media to look for products. If you give them an article that solves a problem, they're much more likely to click. And that's what an advertorial is. And a listicle is the same thing, except it's a list. And it's things like 12 reasons why Javi Coffee Concentrate will upgrade your mornings in 2026. So you're not clicking on a product page, you're clicking on an article. And that's sort of a way to get customers engaged. You're giving them value first and then guiding them through the buying process. Now, what I'm sure Javi Coffee do is they've not just gone and put together a random list of some basic sort of morning routine tips. Throughout the article, which we'll go through in a second, they are probably hitting multiple pain points that the customers have and using a lot of psychology and hitting a lot of pain points in order to really make the customer feel like they've been spoken to and been understood, which is really the most important thing here. So let's look through what they're doing here. So smooth energy that lasts, no crash, no hassle. So they've probably identified that this is the biggest pain point people have. And I'm sure as a coffee brand, like that's probably the most common reason why people buy their products. They go into things like morning rituals, and you can see they're sort of gradually starting to plug their product here as well. You know, they're trying to find a fine balance between just talking about the product, but also talking about the benefits that it has to the customer. So, you know, it starts off, you're talking about the customer's day, you're talking about energy, you're talking about the morning ritual. Now you're starting to get into ingredients and you're starting to get into the taste. And then, more points throughout. We won't go through every single one of them, but you can see they've got really, really good sort of engaging design and very straight to the point article. And then they've obviously got the link here, which will take you probably to the product page. We'll check that out in a second. And by the end of it, you know, they've essentially done a whole load of selling. They've given the customer 12 pain points, 12 reasons to buy the product and, you know, 12 pain points that they've hit. And by the end of it, the customer is much more likely to buy. Now, imagine you've just read through 12 engaging points about why this product's amazing versus just landing on a generic product page that just lists features and bland and just has some product photos. And, you know, from the beginning, it's like sell, sell, sell. You know, that's obviously going to be way less engaging than this is. And this is why things like listicles and advertorials and other pre-sale pages are so much more likely to convert customers once they've gone through this process. And then, there's an offer at the end. And then now it sort of goes into landing page and product page mode where they're now trying to actually sell the product and they're giving the offer and they're doing that now that the customer's engaged. Like, it's a lot to expect of a customer to care about a discount before they've really been sold on the product. Like, they've just seen an ad, they've clicked on the website, and you're immediately hitting them with, here's why you should buy the product. Here's 60% off, benefits, photos. Like, it's too in your face and it's too, those prospects haven't been nurtured yet. And they need to see a lot more ads before they buy if that's the route you go down. Whereas with the listicle, even if someone's never seen your ads before, by the end of going through these 12 points, they're going to understand what it is that makes your product unique and why they need it. And they're going to be much more engaged than someone who's seen one ad and then gone to a landing page or a product page instead. So what do we do differently? And how do we ensure that our clients receive pre-sale pages and ads that do speak to their customers' deepest desires. Because it's one thing to say that, but it's another thing to actually do it, and to do it effectively like Javi Coffee have. So our process is desire engineered creative, and I'll go into more detail as to what exactly that is. So traditional creative development is expensive guesswork. You're spending money on testing theories and ideas that you might have a good judgment on what's going to work or what's not going to work, but you're not basing it on data, and you're not basing it on, as much of a foundation as you could be doing. So we flip it the other way around. What we do is we start with the research, and we start with reverse engineering what the customer cares about, and then we build the ads and we build the listicles and the landing pages, and go from there. The key thing to do is to analyze your customers' voices. So what that means is we scrape hundreds, sometimes thousands of reviews and forums like Reddit, as I mentioned before, and we look at what customers of either the products we're working on or competitor products, what those customers are saying about those products, and why they bought it. Because when you're looking at hundreds of reviews, you start to see a pattern of certain words that come up or certain pain points. And most products have many benefits or many features and many problems that they solve. And if you're not looking at the reviews and you're not understanding which customers are your best customers and you're getting the most orders from, then you're leaving money on the table. And that's where it becomes guesswork, because you're running ads and you're just going, okay, this is a pain point I'm going to focus on right now. But if you actually analyze reviews and you look at your competitors and you look at forums and you see what people are saying on Reddit, you start to build a picture of the key and most important pain points that your customer really cares about. And a lot of the time it can surprise you. Most brands do think that they know this already, but when you actually look into it and you analyze what's being said, you start to see some interesting patterns. And it does go a lot deeper, which we'll go into shortly. So a lot of the time, people will sort of sit down at a surface level and go, my customer wants to get stronger. My customer wants to build more muscle. If you're a fitness or a protein brand, for example, they don't really go deeper than that. So here's the sort of first step beyond just identifying the key pain points. If we know that the most common pain point, like sort of surface level pain point that brands' customers have is, I want to get stronger, we then look into the emotional driver of that, which is usually I'm embarrassed by my skinny physique. Or it might be I'm frustrated with stalled progress. Or it might be I'm scared of losing strength as I age. And so as we build up these pain points, we start to build up avatars. Some of them might be frustrated or helpless, a lifter that's feeling a bit helpless and feels like they're just not able to make any progress and they're stuck. Then you might have an aging strength seeker, as we've got here, where fear and determination is the sort of core emotion they're experiencing. Or you could have an overwhelmed high performer, strength-seeking woman, etc. These are just examples, but hopefully gives an idea of how you can really go deeper with identifying pain points and customer avatars. And so beyond building the avatars, what we now want to look at is what language are they using? So when you analyze hundreds or thousands of reviews, you start to notice really interesting patterns, such as different words being used in the reviews or in the forums that will then allow you to speak to that customer. Now, remember, when that person sees an ad, they need to believe that it's made for them. You need to be speaking their language. We noticed some patterns, like for the brand that we made this for example, the protein brand, the word finally came up, like I think 150 reviews out of 600, which is pretty big. Like 1 out of every 4 customers that left a good review use the word finally. Like you start to notice these patterns and like understand the customer better once you start diving deeper into the language. And like I said, that's where it gets really exciting, because you can now reverse engineer how to speak to that customer. And like I said before, the old method would have involved guessing that, and you would figure it out by testing, and you'd waste a lot of money going, do these words resonate, do those words resonate? But now you can actually work backwards and figure that out, which is obviously a massive head start. And that's what these big brands are doing. They're really understanding their customer and working backwards to figure out what works and what speaks to their customer. But yeah, so those are the research parts of it. Final part is market awareness analysis. So once you've built these customers, these customer avatars, and you know how to speak to them, you want to make sure you've got avatars for every stage of the funnel. Otherwise, you're leaving money on the table. You might have customers that are unaware, so they've never even identified that they have an issue. You might have people who don't have much muscle, but they're not even aware of it, or they don't really know why that's an issue. They don't really care about it. So maybe you'll make an ad like, this is why you've got less energy, because you've not got much muscle. This is why you're sort of not hitting your goals day to day. Then you might have a problem aware person. So it might be someone who is aware that they're lacking muscle, but they aren't aware of the solutions. So they're like, damn, I don't have much muscle. How do I get it? And then you can start to, speak to them in a different way. Then you've got solution aware. So people who know that the solutions exist and they're evaluating options. And so this customer might be looking at protein, but they might also be looking at calisthenics or, going to the gym without protein, or They might be looking at steroids even. You never know what solutions people are looking at. But the point is that's sort of the first stage of people knowing about the problem and exploring their options. You've then got product aware people. So people who know about protein, but maybe they've just not been convinced yet. And obviously speak to those people in a particular way, like you would, I guess, tell them about the benefits of protein. And then you've got the most aware. So these might be people who are ready to buy, people who have tried protein but have maybe used a competitor already and they weren't that happy. So people who are sort of already in the market for it, they're ready to buy protein, they're actively looking for it. And that's where you've just got to give them that final push, and you would usually give them a deal and some final social proof. So yeah, and then once we do those, obviously we test all those avatars, we're starting on much stronger foundations, and it's much quicker to find winners. So like you can see on the screen here, you test all the different desires and eventually you find winners. Now, once you found those winning ads, that's where the listicle that we were talking in earlier comes in. So you would then build a landing page that speaks to that same desire. Now, imagine you're testing ads and you are hitting all these different pain points. You're testing different angles, but you don't know which one's going to work. So you're sending people all to the same landing page. Those people, no matter what desire you're speaking to in the ad, they're all going to land on the same page, and it's going to be a generic page. If you've got ads that speak to a certain desire and you know it's a winning desire, and you make a landing page or a pre-sale page that speaks to that exact pain point as well, then your customer is going to be sold from start to finish by you speaking and really understanding that core pain point that you know matters most to them. That is so much more effective than just sending someone to a generic landing page. Because in this scenario, they've been understood on the ad, and then that's carried through onto the landing page. And by the time they've gone through the pre-sale page and they've landed on the website, they are so much more sold, and they're 10 times more likely to convert because they've already been convinced to some extent on the ad by having the pain point hit. They've then been further convinced on the pre-sale page and educated. By the time they get to the landing page, they are, as I say, 10 times more likely to convert and so much more engaged than any customer that's just landed on a product page. Yeah, this is why this method works. That's why we do it for our clients. And this is what the 8-9 figure brands are doing currently in e-commerce. So yeah, this is something you can go and implement yourself right away. You can literally take this, you can do this research yourself. A lot of it can use AI, but it does require a lot of human input as well. You want to make sure you're scraping the right sources. You want to make sure you're questioning stuff. You want to make sure you're really optimizing what comes out of the AI and that you're extracting the most useful info. And then the listicles, obviously, they're quite simple as a landing page. They're sort of between a landing page and a blog in a way. A lot easier to make than normal landing pages. Definitely something you can go and try yourself. And most brands, you'll have someone in-house that can do this for you. However, we do also do this for our clients. And so if you're interested in that, we are taking on clients currently, and we do very thorough audits before we even consider working with brands. If you'd like one of those free audits, we do have a couple spots left for this month. And I highly recommend, if that is something you're interested in, that you click the link below and meet with one of our team for a sort of intro call where we will gather some information from you, then put together a very thorough audit. And then that can simply give you a lot more to work with if you go and try this yourself, or it can show you what we can do, and you can then go ahead and explore options of working with us after that. But yeah, you can absolutely go and, then take that audit for yourself and try and implement it. We very much believe in giving away a lot of value and showing you our expertise up front. So, please take full advantage of that. Go meet with the team if that's something you're interested in. And yeah, otherwise, I hope this helped to cover what those 8 to 9 figure brands are currently doing in the e-com space with meta ads, and why they are so much further ahead when it comes to reverse engineering and testing than a lot of smaller brands are. So yeah, thanks for watching, and have a good day.